All right, I want to welcome everybody. I want to welcome everybody online as well watching. I'm really excited for this conversation. This is Welcome to Lunch with Jamie. This is a Lunch with Jamie live. This is a live recording. This is really special for a few reasons. First, because of my brilliant guests, but second, because we're just a few days away from Genghis Cohen will close its doors at this location after 43 years. Don't worry, you can still order your favorite Chinese food. And in July, we'll be opening a new location just down the street at Fairfax. Now, I want to introduce my guests, Stephen Graham and Jack Thorne. These guys created arguably one of the most impactful TV shows of all time. And as of just a few minutes ago, the second most watched English language TV show in the history of Netflix.
Really? Really?
Yeah. I'm glad I could break that news to you. You just surpassed this show called Stranger Things. I don't know if you've heard of it.
But I had no idea. Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. I'm honored to bring the two of you to this community for a handful of reasons. But one, I've been doing these conversations with a lot of political leaders, ranging from Hillary Clinton to Cory Booker to Josh Shapiro, and then conversations with Scott Galloway and Sam Harris. But this is the first time that I've been able to, as a producer of film and TV, as my day job, to be able to bring a TV show that really has moved culture and moved society on issues that are of the most importance in today's society. And so I just personally want to say thank you guys for bringing this show to this world. I know it wasn't easy to come together. It probably never seemed like it was going to even be seen by anybody. And it's just amazing. So I really want to give you a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So since this is called Lunch with Jamie, we're gonna start with a food question.
Okay.
Maybe the toughest of the day.
Okay.
There's definitely some debate over the UK's culinary prowess. I don't want to be offensive. I'm married to a Brit, so I can say I have a little Brit in me now. But I disagree with that. You give me a full English. You give me a roast, you give me some fish and chips, I'm very happy. You can keep your mushy peas.
Okay.
But I am a big fan. So what are your favorite English meals?
Specifically English meals.
Specifically English. But curry works, though, just to give you, obviously.
Well, of course, it's our nation's favorite dish.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course it is. What's your favorite?
Well, you see, in Margate, by the sea, you can get... I'm allergic to fish, right? Okay. But what they do is they put mushy peas in batter and deep fry it.
Yeah.
And you have that with chips.
Okay.
Delicious.
My philosophy is everything's better fried, so I probably would like the fried mushy peas.
Okay, now traditionally I'm going to go for what my mum and my nana and my auntie Vera used to make me, which was a thing called corned beef mash and spaghetti. So it was corned beef in a tin. Yeah. Now, there was a famous sketch by Monty Python, Spam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's basically what it is, a tin of Spam. But it was that with mashed potato all mixed together and then you'd make a hole in the middle and you'd put spaghetti in the middle so you had like a volcano. So it was corned beef mash and spaghetti. But when I was a kid, I used to think it was called corned beef ash and spaghetti. Oh, that was my favourite as a kid.
You're not helping with the UK
No, we're not.
culinary prowess. Although the first time I visited my wife's nan, she served me Spam, and so it was
Spam,
not delicious.
chips and eggs.
Not delicious.
It's a delicacy.
I also just learned that you and I share a love of contrast therapy and hot and cold and sauna and ice.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell people a little bit about that?
It was just something I got into. Jack's a cold water swimmer, and I just kind of I started getting into ice baths really. Basically, when I was doing some training for a show I was doing, and someone recommended them, and that was a while ago now.
You were talking about Wim Hof.
Yeah.
When we were making Help, which was
That's right.
5 years ago, and you got us all started on doing the breathing stuff.
And the cold showers.
Yeah.
But what I found with Wim Hof is my ego gets involved. So then it kind of defeats the object of the meditation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, right, I'm going to get to 4 minutes. I'm going to get to 4 minutes, and I'm almost passing out.
Right. Yeah.
And then after I've finished, I'm like, oh, that was great. And it's like, no, but I'm not calm.
Yeah.
So the cold showers began. That's right. It began with help with the cold showers, and then I got into the ice bath, and then I got into doing a sauna and an ice bath, and then, you know, that as I like to push the boundaries in many ways, my other self got involved, and kind of then it became the ice bath, the sauna, and the meditation in the sauna.
Ooh,
yeah. But I do it with my dad and my son as well, so it's a laugh. Yeah.
I love it. I do with my friends. I do 15 minutes in the sauna and 3 minutes in the ice bath, three times.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Good session.
Some of
Isn't
my
it?
sauna crews here.
Do you know what you should do?
Yeah.
Right, take it. Have you got a little speaker? Take a speaker
Yeah.
in, and you know what's them? The sound bowls, is it?
Sound bath, yeah.
Sound baths. Right, you can go on YouTube and get one of them, and put that on the speaker. And then when you come in it's on your second round. You have to come in. Normally you feel quite stoned off that second round.
Yeah.
Because it's just a natural high, isn't
Yeah,
it?
of course.
Boss.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So on that second round, if you press play and it goes, and you just, honest to God, you fly and you trip out to another place.
Hey, it's amazing.
Aunt Alfie's 18, and Aunt Alfie was like, Dad, I was in the jungle with fire hands and everything. I'm like, good lad. So it's a natural high you can experience with your son. You know what I mean?
I love it. All right.
No LSD needed.
Okay. Last food-related question: Yorkshire Gold, Tetley, or PG Tips?
I don't drink caffeine.
I mean, you guys are really hurting me here.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Steven, this is a critical question.
Okay.
This could lose friends.
Tetley tea bags.
Tetley. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm a Tetley man.
All right.
Really.
My father-in-law's a PG Tips guy.
I like PG too. Tetley.
All right. So, you know, this is an industry crowd here. You've talked about this show a lot, but it's amazing. Everybody is just riveted by every aspect of it. So I would love to just start a little bit at the beginning. I know this came a bit. I'm very old friends with Jeremy Kleiner at Plan B. I've known him my whole life. So I know Jeremy had a little kernel of this, how this thing came together. I know Philip was involved in the process. I know an idea hit you in the car while you were driving. Do you want to just walk through the kind of genesis of how this show came to be?
It was basically what you've described. Me and Phil were going to something in the car, and he'd explained to me that Jeremy had been in touch and they were looking to develop something together with me and Phil at the helm, and to come up with an idea and a character for me to play, because they'd watched a little film we did called Boiling Point.
Mm-hmm. Great film.
And they really liked it. They liked the premise and they liked how we made it work. So they suggested of doing something together, and we were traveling, and I don't know, it's just one of those things, you know. I think musicians call it when you tap into the ether. I don't know where it came from, but it was just this kind of, probably a combination of things I'd seen and things I'd been influenced by. And I just went, I don't want to do that. I said, but I do want to do this. I've had this idea. And then I just explained the possibilities of what this idea may be. And then straight away I went, and Jack's going to write it. And Phil was like, okay. I said, then we'll get Warp, Mark and, you know, Emily and the team in England to help us produce it, so they could be the boots on the ground, you know what I mean? And they I know we've worked with Warp quite a lot, and they have a wonderful infrastructure, so we knew that they'd be able to help us develop it. And it just kind of came from there. So I developed this skeleton. When I've got this new way of describing it now. When we were kids, we had a thing called dot to dot. It's like do you remember you had you had all these dots, and you'd join these dots together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you remember that? Did you have dot to dot? And you'd make a picture at the end. You'd be like, oh, wow, look at that.
It's a rabbit.
Yeah, it's a rabbit. But it's a clown holding a balloon. It's like, wow, dot to dot. So I had this dot to dot, and I knew that someone could bring it to life, and that person was Jack. So straight away I said to Phil, this is it. I think this could be it.
I've got really good felt tips.
Different colours as well. And he said, okay, that sounds really good. And so my next step was to get in touch with Mark, explain my story to Hannah, and then I phoned Jack. And from there, that's where the whole thing came about.
That's amazing. When I was going to do this and I started telling people I was getting a chance to interview you guys, I have to be honest, everybody's response who's in this industry was like, oh, Jack, I've got a chance to develop with Jack. He's such a wonderful guy. I love Jack. He's so great. So I'm sure they love you too, but they just didn't have the same history with you.
No,
But you can attest to the same thing because my understanding this collaboration goes back about 15 years now with you and Jack. So
Yeah.
England.
longer.
Yeah, 20 maybe. I don't know,
Yeah,
15.
20.
Yeah.
Look, every character, Jack's wrote me some wonderful characters. Jack is a genius at the construction and the deconstruction of a human being. He's fantastic at it. And I just knew that the person that could bring this idea to life for me was Jack. Because Jack writes with his heart and with his head at the same time, and there's not many writers that do that. And what Jack does beautifully is there's like monologues within Jack's pauses. Do you know what I mean? There really is, because his writing is so beautiful and he's a wonderful craftsman. But I knew that this thing had to be about the stuff that we ended up discussing, and I knew there was only one person that could do that for me, and that was Jack, because we've worked together on This Is England.
Virtues.
Combo, Virtues, Help.
Yeah.
And each one of those characters for me have all been beautiful kind of insights into the human being. Do you know what I mean? And he's just a wonderful writer. He's a magnificent writer. And his plays are beautiful as well. And I knew with the concept of this, it was kind of like taking a play and adapting it for screen in a way. So I knew that Jack was the only person that could write this.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew it was him straight away. And I knew there was no way he was going to say no.
Well,
I can be very persuasive.
So, well, I'll go to you, Jack, now. I mean, what is
This is very nice. I wasn't expecting people to be nice about me. Thank you.
What is it about working with Stephen that has kept you guys together and collaborating over that time?
He's the best. It's that simple. You know that when Steve calls, you can say yes. And you know, every time he has called, I have said yes. I think. I don't think I've ever turned you down, have I?
No. I've never turned you down on either. Oh, I have.
By the way, that was the perfect actor answer, because every actor is like, "Oh, I've never passed it." It's like, "Yes, you have." Yes, you have. Sorry.
As an accident. No, but there was reasons.
You want to talk about this?
No, let's keep on. All right, let's keep this going. It's going really nice. It's going really well. Shit, I forgot all about that. Okay.
Stephen is fearless, like, and you can see it in his acting. And what I mean by fearless is, Steve. I instinctively write characters, I think, that have a relationship with cowardice, as they do with heroism. They walk a line, and I don't know anyone that lays themselves as bare as this guy does, and he does it all the time. Yep. And when you're making a show like this, it required a certain type of actor. It was Phil was an amazing leader, and we followed Phil, but there was also a sort of need for an Olivier in the company. Do you know what I mean? Need for someone that will just kind of like take people with them. And I think if you talk to anyone on Adolescence and they said, there's a war going on, Stephen says we need to run this way, we'd all run that way. Right. That's what he does. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, he just creates that spirit and that love and that trust. And yeah, so he's the best.
Wow. Well, I look forward to one day getting to work with both of you. So that's the real purpose of this conversation. So there's actually nobody here listening or watching. So one of the things that really spoke to me as I heard you talk about the show is how important it was for this to look at a crime and a family involved with a crime from a completely different perspective and the one you don't really see that much. Can you talk a little bit about that and why it was important to you?
That was instantly from our conversations, straight away. You know, normally in this kind of situation, you'd see it from the perspective of the victim, and rightly so, you know, and you'd see their family and how their family are coping with it and how their family are dealing with it, and that's what we should see. But we wanted to twist it. We wanted to look at it through a different prism, and so straight away we set ourselves some little parameters which we needed to work in, and you know, that's very simple. Normally when we see these kind of things, you'd kind of go, okay, so why has he done this? And we'll find a reason why he has done it. You know, Mum was an alcoholic. Dad was very aggressive and angry and used to beat Mum and beat the kids, or, you know, he was molested by Uncle Tony or something like that. So we decided to eliminate all of those possibilities from this story. And we wanted it to be, by all intents and purposes, a perfectly loving, caring, normal family. Do you know what I mean? A hard-working family that are just trying to raise 2 kids. And that was very much from the very beginning, wasn't it? That's what we set straight away. We had ourselves those guidelines.
And something Stephen said in our first conversation is we should know he did it at the end of episode 1. And so when you're sort of doing that in a crime drama, and then you're going, okay, what's the motor? How do I keep this going through 4 episodes? It actually set a beautiful challenge, that, because it made it something else. You know, that we couldn't make it a whodunit. We lost the ability to make it a whodunit. And so the thing that we kept on talking about was, this is a whydunit. And then because, as Steve said, didn't want it to be about parental blame necessarily, it became, okay, where are the circles of blame? Rather than saying there's one thing that the show is going to reveal and then everything will make sense. It was, okay, we're going to look at blame within the education system. We're going to look at blame within his friendship group. We're going to look at blame within the manosphere and the internet. And we're going to look at blaming the parents too. Because it's all sort of shared by all those people. There's about 60 people that could have stopped Jamie doing what he did just through an act of love at any point. Yeah. And they didn't. And so they all share responsibility for what he became, but they also only share this much responsibility. And Jamie has a huge amount of responsibility himself. And so by making that decision, bang, end of episode 1, you know, that then lent itself to a more complicated show. Right. And thankfully, Netflix bought into that and were happy for us to try and do that.
Yeah, it's also that kind of accountability as well. You know, maybe all of these elements are accountable as well. We said it, picking up on what Jack just said there. But I was obsessed with a drama back at home called 24 Hours in Police Custody, and it's a real kind of crime drama, and it's a documentary, and it's brilliant. It's really well made and well put together. But you're straight away you're given this crime, and you watch the police try to solve it. And that particular thing where this fella was saying that, you know, at home we have this thing which does my head in, this no comment, which I hate it. I hate no comment because it does. Do you know what I mean? I want to get in the. I want to no, namaste. No, I don't want to strangle anyone. It's just no comment is like it's and they say it and they just throw it and they throw it back and they throw it back and they throw it back, and you see the police trying to. They know they've done it. Do you know what I mean? And they're trying to find a way in here, but with this particular one, they showed the fella that he'd done it on the CCTV footage, and that was the thing that I said to Jack. I said, at the very end, we see he's done it because we know he's done it. Right. And that was something that we tried to push. And also, you know, there's a beautiful saying, and I thought, and this shows you Jack as well, there's this wonderful saying. It's an old saying, and it's, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. Which is, we are all accountable then in that respect. We're all accountable for this incident. And Jack being Jack, this is why his head's so, do you know what I mean? Jack went, it also takes a village to destroy a child. And that's Jack. That, to me, that sums Jack up. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? In that one sentence.
Yeah.
I see darkness when other people see lightness.
No, not at all. No. You see it from a different perspective. You know what I mean? Not everything is rainbows and unicorns. You see another side of things in the total package of it all. Unicorns. Yeah, unicorns exist.
You know, it's interesting. You guys chose, how do we make this as hard as possible to make this show? I mean, you really did. I mean, you know, just even thinking about that decision to basically say, okay, at the end of episode 1, we're going to basically, you know, let the cat out of the bag, and then how do we sustain it for the rest of the series? I mean, inherently that would just be, okay, well, no one's going to watch. You know, you also, obviously the one-shot style has been a thing that's been talked about. I did the opening scene of Place Beyond the Pines, a movie that I made, was a 3.5-minute scene with Ryan Gosling walking out of his trailer and entering to the globe of death. That was one shot. It was excruciating to pull that off. Yeah. And that was 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Great shot now, by the way.
It was a great shot. I agree. Shout out to Derek C. and France for that. You know, that idea it was just to be able to pull that off for 4 episodes and stick with it. Did you guys at any point, and I know the conceit came a little bit out of how do we do a show as one shot, but did you, when you were making the show, when you were in prep for episode 1, Jeremy Kleiner swears it was like everything was kind of baked into one. The show kind of existed in that. But my belief is the show would have been great if it was shot traditionally as well. It would be different, obviously radically different. But was there ever a moment where you were like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Or we should rethink how we're doing it?
No, never. It was a glorious gift. Because it forced us to write differently. Yeah. Like, I've never written a show like this. And that thing of going, there's going to be an incomplete format. The one shot is an incomplete format. And so you're going to write an incomplete script. That was the biggest gift I've ever been given as a writer. And the primacy of the script was also really exciting for me. That, you know, in TV, the scriptwriter has power. But in this situation, you know, the way that everyone sort of crowded around the script at the end of week 2 was extraordinary, because they knew any decisions we didn't make now, any decisions we didn't get right in that very moment were baked in, because we weren't going to, we were filming this and then it was going to be done. And with episode 2, we made big swings during those weeks because it wasn't quite working and we needed to work out a way to make it work. But I loved the primacy of the script. I loved the fact that everyone was focused on it and that we had to make sure it was watertight and that it wasn't like, let's shoot it and let's fix it afterwards. You know, there's always ADR, there's always reshoots, there's always this, there's always that. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and the other thing it did, which is very theatrical, is it meant that the actors had power over the story, and their faces had power over the story. And that thing that sometimes happens when you're making a show where it's just like, okay, we don't need that pause, we don't need that, we've got to get to this faster, this isn't working, we're worried about the audience, we need to, do you know what I mean? We couldn't do any of that. And that thing of trusting Stephen's face, of trusting Ashley's face, of trusting the pause, that's so rare in telly, and I think it's so wrong that we don't do that. And in film, it feels like they're trying to work out a new vocabulary, particularly the indie film sector at the moment. It feels like there's a sort of new telling going on. And it was so exciting to make this because it felt like we were telling our story in a new way. And so, yeah, no, we loved the one shot.
And the beauty of it as well is it's so unique in you know, in all respects. But at the beginning, we have the script. We have the script for the episodes. And we're like a company. We're like a theatre company together. Yeah. We sat in, like for episode 1, we sat in the house for a week. And we were very fortunate. We had Jack for 3 days of that week. And Phil, who is magnificent. Phil is our director, he's a wonderful director. He's a wonderful man. He's one of my best mates. But as a director, he's unique as well in his ability to be able to help and guide actors get to this certain place, and he doesn't even know where that place is. Yeah. That's the other beauty of it. So we had that script became ours. We all knew exactly why we were saying what we were saying and how we were saying it. And Jack, you know, Jack is, and it's a very rare, it's a rare quality in our industry. But Jack has no ego, and what Jack serves is the purpose of the story. Which we had a team of players as well that were on that same page. So we'd have conversations with Jack, and you know, myself and Christine Tremarco, who played my wife, who was magnificent. We'd talk to Jack and we'd say, so the relationship's about this, and Jack would be it, and we'd go through the story, so we'd know exactly why we were saying it. And then that's that first week, and it's embodied into our heads. It's like a play. We're doing a play. We're basically Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, do you know what I mean? It's like that. We're behind the scenes of what's going on, and it becomes our own, and we live it and we breathe it, and it becomes physical. And then the second week, our genius of a director of photography, Matt Lewis, we then just spend that whole week choreographing the shots, and the movement of the camera, which has been meticulously worked on by him and Phil and Sarah Lucas, our amazing first AD. They've worked on that. So the journey that is going to be 3 minutes in the car, they've done it with a stopwatch, and they've done it, do you know what I mean? They've sat in their car driving it going, right, it takes us 4.5 minutes to get there. We're going to have to do it quicker. We need to find a better route. And so all of those logistics are worked out by our phenomenal crew. So every
And
time...
Matt is also working out which face to look at in every scene, which, you know,
Which
and
doesn't
so
normally
all
happen.
mad creative decisions being made. If you look at episode 3, the amount of time he spends on a single face when you would normally be getting 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. Do you know what I mean? You know, all that stuff. And so,
to hold the camera there and listen.
Everyone was an author on this show, and it really benefited from the fact that everyone was an author.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely how critical the actors are in every moment, because they're leading. It's like the ball's being passed. Like you talked about being late to football. I mean, it really is. The ball's being passed, and you got to kind of be. No one's perfect.
There's
right?
a Hitchcock quote which I'm going to misquote, but it's something like dialogue is just the words actors say while their faces tell the story. And if you look at this show, the amount of time that we spend on people's faces compared to conventional shows, it really benefits from, you know, the twitch of the eyebrow, do you know what I mean? The scratch of the nose, and I think that tells our story really.
And when it's done properly, acting's not a game of golf. Do you know what I mean? I know there's a lot of actors who think it is, but it's not. It's a team game. It's a team effort. And predominantly that team is not just us here. It's those behind as well, do you know what I mean, who help make it and create that beautiful atmosphere for us to just play.
Yeah. They, you know, a lot has been talked about the drone shot and the chase sequence. I was reading something about Jamie's yawn.
Yeah.
And
that came in the final shot of the entire show. Last take of the episode.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to quickly. I don't know if everybody knows that story, but it was.
Well, yeah, that he was exhausted, and we'd done 14 takes of that episode. They both knew it backwards. And there was just a moment when he yawned in the middle of a scene where we really isn't supposed to yawn, and he made it part of it, and then Erin riffed off it, and it was just glorious. Rhys Ifans, the amazing actor Rhys Ifans, I did a play with Erin, and Rhys said that acting opposite Erin is like playing jazz. And that episode is testament to two jazz players playing opposite each other, and one's a newbie and the other's a veteran, but they create a vital spirit between them.
And the beauty, I just want to pick up on a point about that particular episode. I went, and episode 3, when I was going through when I was giving him the dot-to-dot pictures, I went, in episode 3, he went, yeah. I went, right, what happens in episode 3 is we see the lad with the child psychologist, but it's not their first meeting like it would be in a conventional drama. I said, they've had a few meetings. He was like, okay, and what's happening? I went, I don't know. He went, what do you mean? I went, well, I want you to write me your version of a David Mamet play. And he went, is that your only note? I went, yeah, give me your version let me see your David Mamet play. And he went, okay. And he wrote what I think is a wonderful.
I mean, every moment in this is flawless, and there's so many. And you talk about every single scene and the perfections or the imperfections in many ways, right? I mean, I think, are there any other just the top of the mind that were moments that maybe you've talked about or you haven't talked about that was sort of an imperfection that really led to a special moment for you?
The van on the way to the DIY shop. There was the traffic lights, wasn't there? Didn't we get stuck with traffic lights?
Yeah, we got stuck with traffic lights one time. Yeah.
Was that the take we used, though? I don't know.
No, we didn't use that take.
Right. There was one where, it took a while.
There was one where it took a while because for me, personally, because it was it was the last take. It was take 16, and it was the take that we used for episode 4.
Yep.
And my wife and kids were there on that day, and Hannah was, and Phil came up. This is Phil. Phil came up with a beautiful idea, which obviously no one told me about until I go into the room at the very end. And as you say, look, the camera's there. I know we've done it 15 times. I know what's happening. I'm going to have a look around the room. I'm looking at my son's bedroom and thinking maybe I should have been in here more and helped him out. And it's that sadness of now he's sitting in a prison cell, and it's gone. Our relationship's gone. And as I came in the door, I turned around and I looked, and and my kids had put pictures of them on the wardrobe where normally it's the closet, and can't believe I've just used an American term instead of saying wardrobe. The closet, and on the closet. So there's pictures of my kids, and they said we love you, Dad, and we're so proud. And so I looked at that for a second, and then I'm like, oh shit! And then I've got to carry on. I'm like, no, Eddie, get back. And then so that for me was a unique moment, and that was the genius of Phil. Phil come up with that idea.
Yeah. Wow, that's brilliant.
He did ask your wife whether it was appropriate first, right?
He did, yeah. He did, yeah. He said, "Do you think this will be okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's."
So obviously all the performances are amazing. But we have to talk about Owen Cooper for a second. He's not here to help this, so you'll have to be his proxy. But his performance, I know you talked about casting an unknown. I mean, even a 13-year-old, if you want to cast an actor, it's hard. I mean, I've worked with a lot of kids. I've worked with a lot of first-time actors. But his performance is just extraordinary. The depth of it, the honesty of it. Obviously, the ability to work off of you and to work off all these amazing actors help. But what are some of the moments or scenes that you remember, or that you remember him bringing to life, that just sort of took you by, took your breath away?
Episode 3 was the first thing we shot, and Owen turned up, and the first day was fine, right? We went through the script, everything was all right, but it was like, okay, let's see whether we can get some rage out of him. Let's see whether we can lead him to the water a bit more. And then slowly through that week, through a combination of Erin and Phil, this boy just took flight. And it was the maddest experience I've ever had in any rehearsal room, because he went from being, oh, this is going to work, it's going to be okay, to, holy shit, who is that kid? And he just grew this muscle. He became Jamie, and he found it difficult. He found it really difficult. Phil's on record talking about this moment, and I was there when he broke down, and it wasn't easy for him at all. There was a huge amount of pressure on him, and everyone was trying to make him feel like there was no pressure, but you can't help it. Do you know what I mean? You're on screen and there's two of you, but he just grew like 10 feet, and it was amazing. It was amazing. He is amazing.
I think he's phenomenal, personally, and I think he's a unique talent in many ways. I also think he's a generational talent. And if you look at that performance, if you just forget that he's, a 13-year-old young lad, if you just watch the choices he's making, and if you just look at it properly, do you know what I mean? It's, but any age, it defies age, any age. That is a wonderful performance. But for him to be so fresh like that, and for him to, it's the first thing he's ever done professionally. He's done some acting classes in a little group in Manchester, which is a great little place for him to learn, and he had a lot of fun at that. But it's the first professional job he's ever done. There was a moment because he went through the whole rehearsal process as well, and he went through the audition process, and that was tough in a way. Do you know what I mean? It has to be. Shaheen Begu is our casting director, who's phenomenal at finding young talent. She's a wonderful, wonderful casting director anyway, but she's specifically brilliant at finding young talent. And she had a group of these young lads, and we had a whole day of workshop with the last 5. And from the moment he came in the room, we just started chatting, and I looked at him and I just said, from now on, right, I'm your dad and you're my son. Mm-hmm. And he just gave me this look, and he just went, okay. Wow. And I just went, wow. And then he left the room, and I was like, he's unbelievable. Yeah. He just took it in his stride, didn't he? But he's a credit to his mum and dad. He comes from a really loving family. He's got a wonderful mum, and he's got a beautiful father. And he's from good stock, as my nana used to say. Right. It's a hard-working, beautiful family, and he's taken it in his stride. And I do think he's going to fly.
All he wanted to do was play swing ball. Yeah. Do you have swing ball over here?
No.
Well, it's where you it's a
piece of
stick
like tetherball.
Yeah. And he just played that over and over again it was like the end of Ep 1.
The end of episode 1. And we'd be like that, and then we'd come out of it, and he'd go cut, and we'd just have a couple of little moments, and then I go, you okay? And he'd go, yeah. Are you? And I go, yeah. And then he'd go to me, he'd go, that was a good one, wasn't it? And I go, yeah, that was great, that. Yeah, sound. And then he'd go, right. And he'd shoot off, and everyone would be outside going, oh, and he'd just run upstairs with his chaperone and start playing swing ball. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's priceless.
His stride.
You're a father. And so I assume that played a role in your thinking about this character. I'm curious if there's certain specific things as you were preparing that helped you get ready for this.
There was lots of things. We right at the very beginning as well. Myself, Jack, and Phil spoke about our lives growing up as young lads, and our lives now as men, and the kind of moments we've confronted our own anger and stuff like that. We dived quite deep into that right at the very beginning, didn't we?
Yeah.
We spent quite a lot of time talking about it and being very honest and open with each other. It was kind of like a really nice therapy session. But then for myself, there was little things that you look. But we're magpies. You pluck things and you remember things, and you've got a Rolodex back there, and you go, oh yeah, remember that, what happened, and remember this. And there was a couple of little incidents. One of them specifically was when our Alfie was about 14. He was upstairs, and I'm very tactile with my boys. You know what I mean? And Grace, I always have. I always tell my kids I love them. I adore my kids. I just love them to bits. You know what I mean? The two the best things I've ever done in my life, personally, I think, is being a part of their creation. Thank God. You know what I mean? And so I love them to bits. They're my world. So I was going away for a couple of days, and I was giving Alfie a hug, and I gave him a kiss on the cheek, and I said, I love you, son, and be a good lad and help your mum out and all that, and I'll see you. I'll phone you later when I get there, and I'll see you when I come back. And he was like, all right, Dad. And his mate, his mate was sat, and his mate just started crying, and I was like, you all right? And our Alfie said, yeah, he's okay. And he was like, you all right, lad? And our Alfie said, his dad's never told him that he loves him, and his dad's never given him a cuddle, and it just broke my heart. And yeah, I know this lad and his dad, and I see them, and he played footy, and you'd think that he would say those things. I was never aware, but to see the sadness that lad had, and I remember just thinking, wow, okay, that's something that really touched my heart, and I brought that into the performance of Eddie. Yeah. It was also Eddie's loosely kind of based on my uncle Eddie, whom I love dearly. And there was a moment not long after my Auntie Vera had passed. Eddie, I never seen him shed a tear at the funeral, and neither he lost his son as well, our Edward, my cousin. I never seen him shed a tear then. And it was a good few years later, and me and Eddie were sat in his kitchen having a cup of tea and PG tips. and I remember just saying to our Eddie, it gets me, I remember just saying to our Eddie, I said, are you doing okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm doing all right, lad. And I just said to him, I said, are you okay? And he went, yeah. And he just said to me, he said, sometimes, it's really hard. He said, I shout her name and I forget she's not here. And I just thought, wow. That kind of, he's a very stoic man, but that sadness that he carries, and to never show that in any way. And even that moment there, he dropped something rather beautiful and poetic to me, but still there was that was the deepest we were going to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Men, especially today, I think are having an even tougher time figuring out how to express those feelings or those thoughts. And Scott Galloway talked about how when his sons are doing something, he always encourages them to bring a friend, because he just likes to have somebody else just to be with them, and for them to experience another family, and to hear how they talk to each other, and that's a really powerful story. Jonathan Haidt is someone who's been on this conversation before. I know you guys it's come up a lot in your conversations. He gave me a question to ask you guys, which is, in my experience, Gen Z is not in denial. They see the problems with their digital world, but feel trapped. How are teen boys responding to adolescence? Do they recognize the social and social media dynamics? And do they think they're being pulled towards some bad stuff, or are they happy with their online lives?
Been really interesting since the show. I mean, I talked to a lot of teenagers before when writing the show, and then talked to teenagers after the show, and I've gone into schools and had the opportunity to talk about what's happening to them. And you get a variety of responses, but most of them are defensive. I think it's that thing of saying that they're aware of it. I'm not sure they are. I'm not sure you can be. I'm not sure I am most of the time. I feel a bit lost in terms of my role in the digital space and how I navigate it, let alone how they do. I talked to one lad who was really a beautiful boy, actually, and he said to me, the thing is, Andrew Tate's helped me, and I can filter out the other stuff. He said that the stuff about hate, the stuff about harm doesn't interest me. But the stuff about trying to get fit and do well, I find that really inspirational. And I found that really chilling. Because I think that idea of there is a certain way you need to look. There is a certain type of man you need to be. There is a certain type of person that unless you are that person, you are going to fail and you are not going to live a normal life. And I think that's the threat of this stuff. The threat of this stuff is the world is against you, the female space is against you, and unless you work out how to solve yourself in those circumstances, you're going to be alone. And if I heard that when I was 13 years old, and by the way, my dad never said he loved me, and he doesn't hug me to this day. That's fine. He's a lovely man in lots of ways. We have a very strong relationship, but I'm not someone that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, had that stuff. If I heard that, I would have believed it, because it would have made sense of my isolation. It would have made sense of my feelings of deep insecurity, and it would have made sense of the way that I felt in my classroom, which is no one wanted to talk to me, no one wanted to look at me, no one wanted to spend any time with me. And it's very, very powerful stuff, and it scares me rigid for them. And I don't think they're aware of it, and I think they're in deep trouble, and I think we need to help them.
Well, I mean, listen, it's fair to say this show is going to be one of the things that's going to help them. Obviously, this has become a phenomenon where now this show is making its way to schools. I know Keir Starmer's talked about it in Parliament. The idea of even comprehending that something like this might have happened with the show would have been. I mean, you were just hoping to get made. So, what are some of your hopes that this show, what conversation does it start? Do you think about what do you want people, families in living rooms, hopefully they're watching it? What do you want them to talk about?
That was it. That was our key objective. You know, Jack's always said, and he calls the television this wonderful thing. Jack, and I remember when he said it a good few years ago, he says the television is an empathy box. And through this empathy box, look, television's changed. Conventionally, when I grew up as a kid, we had 4 channels. No, 3 channels. 3 channels, actually. Yeah, before Channel 4 came along. We had 3 channels, do you know what I mean? And then we watched Channel 4 go, and that brought this whole new world of new things, and, you know, lots of people who spoke like me were on Channel 4 at the very beginning, and it was a whole new brave world. But, you know, it's changed. It's really changed. There's lots of different ways to watch things now. And very seldomly do people sit round together as a family the way we did. We had programs that you'd watch every Sunday night, you know what I mean? Every Friday night, you'd watch them as a family. And conversations may come about. But going back to that point, you know, I feel we have an objective. I think sometimes, you know, as artists, we have an opportunity to put a mirror up to society and let them see themselves through that empathy box. And all we wanted to do at the very beginning, and we had a conversation at the very beginning, me, you, Phil, and Hannah, that first proper conversation was we just wanted families to talk, to ask what's going on, to ask how you're doing, do you know what I mean? And that was our overall objective. Yeah. And I think that seems to have happened. Yeah. The amount of people that have said to me in the street, you know, just doing the shopping in Tesco's and stuff like that have come up to me and said thank you, because I had a proper conversation with my young boy. Men and female, you know, male and female, men and women have said that they've had proper conversations with their teenagers about what's happening in their school, about what's happening within their friendship group, and they said we hadn't done that before. We just hadn't done it. So thank you, and that's massive.
And it's boys and girls. You know, I had a young student come up to me to say she doesn't talk in class. She doesn't talk in class because there's a group of boys in that class that make her feel so intimidated, and she hasn't said anything she said for about 3 years. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's not, you know, this is Yeah, and hopefully sofas, lead to discussions in schools, lead to discussions, hopefully at legislative level at some way, because I think this needs everyone working together.
Yeah, 100%. And just that idea of just a conversation, it seems so simple, but it's the hardest thing. I'm a parent of 2 daughters, and it's the hardest thing to do, just to ask those simple questions.
Yeah.
We're going to try and get to a couple of questions, so we don't have that much time, but if you have a question, just there'll be someone with a microphone. There's been, when I watched the show, it was just everything. It spoke to me in so many different ways. There's been a little bit of sort of some, some backlash or some just about the show, and I'm curious from you guys what has surprised you the most, or what has made you kind of think after sort of. What has that made you feel or think, or what's some of that you could want to speak about?
In terms of things that we do differently now,
Yeah,
or
I guess,
that it's inspired, there's only one thing that really bothers me, that if I rewrote it, and I have this with every project I do, there's always stuff that I wish I'd do differently. I wish I'd given more space to Jade in episode 2, her best friend. I felt like watching the show back now, I wish I'd just given her an inch more space so that we could have understood her pain, and so that we could have centered on her a little more. I think that would have done some good in allaying some of the discussion about whether we should have given Katie space in the show. Because I think if we had, that would have caused problems. It would have led to, it would have diluted the mixture and made more people take different sides on it in a way that we didn't necessarily feel would be healthy for the show. But Jade could have shown more of Katie's love, and could have shown more of her as a human being, and could have shown more of her own humanity, and I think that would have benefited us. But that's the bit that I wish I could rewrite now.
When you talk about backlash, you make something, you put it out there, and it's, look, it's subjective.
Yeah.
That's what art is.
Yeah, of course.
Some people may think Picasso is a piece of shite. Some people may think Picasso is beautifully magnificent and it can lift their soul to a higher fucking alternative reality. Do you know what I mean? It's subjective. But my only thing was, there was a couple of incidents where people said it was about race, and it never was about race. It was never made about race. It was never. Someone actually made a comment saying that we were afraid to cast the right colour, which hurt, because that was never the case. It was never going to be about race. It was trying to be something. It was something that was. This could happen to any one of us, and it was not based on one specific incident. It was, the idea came about from various things, but one of them specifically was a young girl who was murdered in Liverpool by a young lad, and there was 3 of them that went to this particular place, and she was stabbed to death. She was killed. Now, and they were all white lads. Do you know what I mean? So it was never about race, but yet some people decided to take that and make their own agenda out of it, which, that's their prerogative. But they were never in our heads when we created it. So for them to take it and bastardize it and claim that this is what it was, it's just wrong, because it wasn't that at all. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It never was about that. It was just about a normal family going through this extraordinary situation. That was all it was always about. It was never about colour at all. Right. Never about that.
Well, it's a perfect show. I mean, it really is. Is there anybody who has a question before we? Okay. Laura down here. Mark Feuerstein, is the microphone somewhere? There you go. Can you pass it down? Oh, sorry, back there. Sorry. Great.
How you guys doing? Thank you so much for the vulnerability. Appreciate it. My name's Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
So my question is, you guys probably wanted to be filmmakers for a long time, I'm guessing, right? The question is there any lesson that you've learned through your experiences as filmmakers that you didn't know you were going to learn before you started?
Maintain your integrity. Be honest with what you're talking about, the subject. which I think we were always honest about what we were making. And that's the other thing. We didn't make it for a mass audience. We never thought, we made it, it's a tiny little drama. If you look at it properly, it's a tiny little drama and it's very colloquial. It's about a family. It's about an incident in a fictitious northern town in England. So it was a small story, but for some reason it caught the zeitgeist and it resonated with people. I think it resonated on a human level because, we can put ourselves into the situation that these families are going through, this particular family, and we can resonate with it, you know what I mean? I think most of us have sons and daughters, or we have aunties and uncles, or, nieces, nephews, and it's that kind of fear as well of this could happen to any one of us. This could be me, this could be my next door neighbor, could be my brother, my sister, it could happen to any one of us, and just to be mindful of that. So I think what we really learned was that we were honest and we were true. And I think if you're always honest and true, then you can't really go wrong. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, but it's a great question.
Say your name.
Hi, guys. I'm Mark Feuerstein, and I love the show so much. It just killed me. It was so moving. There was a rumor that in the first episode, the cop got the kid's name wrong at the end of a take. Is that true or not at all?
Wow. Not heard that rumor. Have you heard that rumor?
That was not in this particular take. That was in another take.
Okay.
Ashley actually called his son the real name of the kid. I forgot his lovely name. Amari. He called Amari, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he did in one of the takes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
But that wasn't in the final.
okay. So I guess I was really just wondering about the level of, you obviously had resources and were able to do them, many takes, many opportunities for success. Well, speak to that. But also I just want to ask about the level of perfectionism, because I'm an actor and I know that feeling of wanting one more take. And you guys must have had that, times 1,000. And I wonder how you decided, okay, we got it, we're moving on. It must have been so hard.
It's an interesting thing because primarily the way it's set up is hopefully you're supposed to be able to do 2 takes a day. So you do 1 in the morning, reset, and do 1 in the afternoon. And we were filming for the whole week. So technically, you could have 10 takes by the end of the week and pick which one was the best. That was the format. However,
What? I don't know where you're leading me to. So.
well, explain a little bit about how we got to take 16.
Oh, yeah.
Or 14.
Yeah, well, you and Phil got bored and wanted to start filming immediately, and so we were filming in Tech Week. Was what was happening. We were going earlier and earlier in order to get into it, because you guys were like, let's go. We're excited.
It's kind of that spontaneity as well. You know yourself, look, as an actor, and I suppose that's where, because you marry both mediums in this. You have that beauty of theatre and that live and that spontaneity of, anything can happen, but we've got to keep it going. But also, you're working in film and television, so you have that naturalism and that nuance where it's, as Jack said before, it's minimalism. So you're controlled and contained within that, but anything can happen.
And it's like making a play. You're in control when you're on the stage, and because you are following that full hour, you don't want the next take because you're alive in the moment. And that's what these actors were doing over and over again. They were exhausted between takes because they were so alive in that hour, and they were all working. For that full hour, they were all working and they were all staying and they were all in it, and it was an amazing thing. There wasn't any sort of we did have good discussions over which take we used each time, and the really interesting one in that instance was episode 1, where you were adamant that the take where it really worked was take 2.
Take 2.
And he was right, but it took me a while to see it.
Of course, but take 2 just had something a little bit special about it. But then I also think there's reasons why for 2 of the episodes, episode 4 and episode 2, it was the last take.
And episode 3. I think episode 3 is the last take too.
Did we use it?
Yeah. They were all 3 of them are the last takes, apart from Ep 1.
And I think there's a reason for that. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, especially with that, let's say episode 4. It was the final day. It was like the end of a school summer camp. It had been a wonderful, joyous experience, and it was the final take. And we knew we had some really good, because that's the other thing, you know you've got a couple of really great takes.
During the week, you're going take 6. Did
Yeah.
you see take the 6?
Yeah,
That was
'cause-
exciting.
Yeah, and you're having like little, I think a lot of the crew were doing a little sweepstake of what number would actually win. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But for that particular one at the very end, the sun. It was beautiful. It was glorious. We'd all had a wonderful experience together, and you just threw it up. And I know what you're saying, it's that perfectionism, but it's also there's beauty in imperfection, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? It's throwing it up and letting see what's happening. It's having the bottle to jump off a cliff. Hope you fly. Do you know what I mean?
We're going to one more question, and then we're finished. Say your name.
My name's Lauren Greenfield, and I'm a documentary filmmaker and a photographer, and I love the show so much, both the content and the photography. And my question is about the one take, because in documentary often we'll be in one take on a scene, but it'll be like 3 hours long. So I was wondering how you manage the time, and if like you stopped at a traffic light and you knew one scene was too long, did you abort or did you make it up in other scenes? And also for the DP, was he able to respond to the acting in real time, or was it so choreographed that he already knew where to be?
No, the Matt was moving constantly, and Matt had his iPad out from the very first day of rehearsals. So Matt was we did his back in episode 3. Episode 3, which is the one where you're staying in a room, we absolutely nailed the guy because he couldn't. He was crouching down to try and catch where he wanted to go with this iPad. So he was in a real state. But no, there wasn't any sort of like. We need to abort. It was always, this is interesting. This has changed it. Let's respond as a unit. And because this company was so comfortable with each other, it is like that thing in theatre where it's like, I've smashed that cup that was supposed to be there for me to be able to go cheers at the end of the scene. I can't do that anymore. What do I do? I'm going to give him a hug instead, and then that becomes the way you've told the story. So no, it felt true every time. That's all we were aiming for, truth. And so whatever happened, we could go with truth. Plus, we were playing on Netflix, where there wasn't like, you've got to hit this hour mark each time. And that gave us the freedom to be able to go, okay, this episode is 48 minutes long, this episode's 56. Whereas if we were aiming for a BBC hour or a Channel 4 hour, we'd have been in a bit of trouble with that.
Right, yeah. Last thing. Is there anything at this point, any question that hasn't been asked yet of the process or the show or your experience or something you want people to take away that comes to mind?
Not I can think of. Can you think of anything?
I don't think so.
No, not really.
It was like this amazing summer.
Yeah.
And the experience of making it was actually really joyful because everyone was really happy, and because there wasn't the same. Because making the day was really easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, no, we just got stuck on scene 12 of episode 3. We've got to get scene 8 of episode 4 done as quickly as possible, and everyone's like panicked and stuff. There was no panic. There was ice creams. At lunchtime, there was
get ice cream vans.
Phil's brother made us little shots of juice that we'd have and stuff like that. Where there was a sense of everyone being very relaxed, very, very, very on top of their game, and very happy that they were making something that they believed in. And I've never had an experience like it, and I really want to have an experience like it again.
I think as well, just to pick that up from Jack. I've been very fortunate, and we've both been very fortunate with our careers. We've worked on some magnificent jobs, and we've been a part of some wonderful projects. But there was a uniqueness about this as well, because every single person on that set felt like they were valued. And every single person felt important. And I think, if you fill your teammates and your work colleagues with enthusiasm, because you're valued. You know, that's all anyone wants, to feel a part of something and to feel like they have something to bring to the table. And that was exactly what this was. You know, each piece of the jigsaw was integral, because without that specific piece, I've always said this, we could have never made that jigsaw. It could never have been that specific picture. And that was the beauty of it, even to the extent where, you know, look, a wonderful line, Claire, who was doing my makeup, and I use this analogy because I just think it says everything about Jack, it says everything about our process, and it says everything about that. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it was great, we had a wonderful time, and that's true, but this is the absolute truth. Claire, who was doing, you know, she was my makeup artist, she was doing makeup, and we were chatting, and she said something, and I was like, wow, what did you just say? And she explained it about the victim, how we specifically, it was...
It's a shame that that shows that murder cases have to always be about the perpetrator and the victim never gets the spotlight.
So she said that, and I went, oh my God, write that down. And she was like, what? I went, write it down. And she wrote it down, and I phoned Jack, and I went, Jack, listen, Claire's just said this. I think the detective could say it. And he was like, oh, that's a lovely line.
Yeah.
He went, right, I know where to put it. And I went, okay. And then it's there, and it sits in that, you know, it was
D.S. Frank, so it's Faye Marseille's character in the school episode. It's the thing that she says to Bascom when they're outside.
And the beauty about that is we're in the makeup truck, and Faye's just down there, and I've gone, Faye, listen to this. And she's gone, oh, that's great. And then I've phoned Jack, and Jack said who's going to say it. And then, you know, it's so each person was integral. Without each piece of that jigsaw, we would not have had that final picture. And you know, and that's just a wonderful way that we can all be on sets. That's, you know, everyone's there because we all want to do the best we possibly can. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we, society owes you thank you for going and putting this together and putting your heart and soul into it. I thank you personally. It's so special, and I just can't wait to continue to see its impact and this continued success. And you know, maybe you're going to be the #1 most watched show at this point. So thank you.
I don't think we can beat Wednesday.
Anything's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you.